The earliest memories that I have, probably when I was 5 years old, it was 1967. I remember being in the camp, and I remember hearing airplanes, and everybody had to go run to the mountain. We had to hide inside of the mountain, and I remember laying down inside. I was sick, and I remember my other two sisters were sick with chickenpox. And I remember my father say, "You guys stay here, and I'm going to get you milk and water." And it was kind of scary why we were there. I was telling myself, why aren't we home? But all I could hear were the airplanes on top of us, and people are frightened, scared, and it was a bad experience, I guess. That never disappeared from my mind. Living in a camp, like, you're exposed to the streets outside. So it wasn't just my sisters, it's like living with the neighbors. I mean, all I have to do is look from the window and I would see my friends. And I would like, "Hey, Naama, Ataf," I would call them. It's like I would go to their house. We would go to the street, all the kids, and play. So it was like we all were one big family. We made dolls. We would make dolls, and I remember we would go outside and collect 5 stones, and we would play like gal, el gal. So we made our toys. And even though we had no video games, we had no TV like when I was young, but it was really fun because you don't need video games, I guess, just to have fun. We lived in a good spot in the camp. Like, we lived in the mountain. I remember every day I would climb to the mountain, and I would choose the biggest rock, and I would sit on the rock, and I would go collect flowers and the plants. I remember the fields. The fields were amazing. Like the wheat, like I remember going in the field and hiding from my friends sometimes. They looked like gold. Like, the wheat was so yellow. It was amazing. It's just so pretty. I remember, my mom was good in making maftool. I remember, like, she would sit on the floor, and she would bring wheat, and she put the wheat, and she has this barad full of water and salt and olive oil. And she would put olive oil on the wheat, and she would put salt and water, and she will just do that, and then they turn into small pebbles. And she kept on doing that till she had a big, huge, like that. And my father loved it. My dad, that was my dad's favorite maftool. He liked that so much. And it would take her the whole day to do that. But it was good, it was worth it, it was yummy. She still does it, and she still sends me some. I remember one time I was sitting in the house. I was like probably 6 years old or 7 years old, and I remember looking at my mom, and my mom had this thing on her head, bread, lots of bread, and I'm looking and I see like so many soldiers behind her. And I'm like, why are these soldiers coming to my house with machine guns? Why are they walking behind my mom? Why? And I found out that when they saw my mom inside the taboon, she was baking bread in taboon those days because we didn't have any electricity. People would cook the bread outside the house. So when they saw my mom in there, they thought that she was making bread for some fida'iyah. So they decided to wait for her till she was done, and then they walked her to the house. So when I was home and I'm looking at them, I'm like, oh my God, why are they here? It was really scary. Like, you're such a little girl, and you look up and you see soldiers holding guns, big guns, pointing at you. Oh, are they gonna shoot me? What did I do? We had to make believe things were normal. So we had just to try to go to school every day. My dad would go to work every day, and he would just do his daily things. My mom would take care of us. We knew we have to be good in school. We have to to be the best. We just had to forget that they were there. We just had to forget it. That's it. It's like we had to deal with it. Too bad. They are there. We have to make the best of it. That's how it was. Where we were, mostly people weren't into celebrating. They were like always in that bad mood. Like we shouldn't celebrate. We shouldn't. Like we don't have a reason to celebrate. What are we celebrating? What are we? We're living in a camp. We barely have anything. So people really wasn't interested in celebrating too many things. We really didn't celebrate birthdays. I remember one of my sisters probably was 14 years old, and we were talking about birthdays, and I said to her, I wonder when it's your birthday. She didn't even know when was her birthday. And she said, okay, let me go get my birth certificate. And my sister, she goes and she looks at her birth certificate, and she says, oh my God, my birthday's tomorrow. And I'm like, oh my God, your birthday's tomorrow. Why don't we do something? And I remember me making a cake for her, and we invited her friends from school. And that was the first birthday we ever celebrated. That was probably the first birthday in the whole camp, my sister's birthday, that I made the cake and I invited her friends. And my sister was so happy. To me, my father was always like special and a hero, because all of his brothers and sisters, parents, they immigrated to Jordan, but my father refused to go. He said that I will die here in Palestine. And I was always like amazed of my dad, how he decided to stay. And I was always proud of him. My father was a hardworking man. We lived in a camp. I remember that people had no electricity, no water, no bathrooms, no dishwashers, no refrigerator. My father was the first one to get electricity generator. My father was the first one to get us a TV. I remember when we got a TV, all the neighbors came to our house to watch the TV. It was like amazing. We watched Kulthum. It was funny. And we got our first refrigerator and a washer. So I think my dad was not like any other man that I've ever seen in my life. He was always different than everybody else. He always wanted us to have good life. When I came to America, like the first year was really, really bad, because no neighbors speak your language. I don't know anybody. I don't have any family. Not too many Arab people were at the time. So I would probably spend the whole day sleeping, half of it sleeping. It was difficult to speak with them. My family, they had no phone. The phone, probably the first phone they had was 15 years after I came to America, or 10 years after. So my dad would write me letters, my dad. And I would write him back. I still have his letters.
Do you remember what kinds of things you would talk about?
Well, he would tell me about the neighbors. How are the neighbors? Who got married? Who gave birth? Who died? Who went away? Who graduated? He would tell me about my brothers, my sisters, how much he misses me, and how I was, and how was my family. My God, I think I love my father so much. He died 5 years ago.